At times I feel really positive, and at times I feel that the rate of change is just not fast enough. What I mean by that is that the rate of change of business and people, the communities and government is not fast enough. They don't appreciate that the science is saying that we need to act very urgently with very large reductions in our greenhouse gas emissions so that we don't continue to damage the planet and damage the climate. Society, civilization has evolved over the last 10,000 years with temperature variations globally of only about half a degree up or down. The last 100 years, the climate has warmed more than 0.8 of a degree. And in the next 100 years, it's projected to warm at least 3 degrees or more. This train analogy is that the climate system is a very complex, a very big system. It's taken effort, concerted effort, by human society to put the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, and now we're changing the climate system. It's going faster and faster like a really big train.
It's worse than we think.
It's worse than we think, and it's getting faster and faster. The change is accelerating. But now we've realised this is a problem and we need to slow down that change.
We can't worry about whether China's following or...
Well, the whole of the globe is important. But that does mean that Australia is very important. Basically, what we've been doing is dumping the rubbish into the atmosphere. Usually, the approach in international community, even in Australia, is the polluter has to pay.
Yes.
And in terms of greenhouse gases and carbon pollution, yes, Australia is one of the worst polluters per person in the world. Yes, it's important that all the other countries join in, but Australia has to take the lead. There are going to be very many adverse impacts from climate change.
Yes.
But there are many opportunities as well, because Australia is rich with renewable energy resources like wind power and solar power and wave energy and geothermal energy. We actually need to invest across a whole range of zero carbon energy generating technologies, but we also have to make sure they're safe. There are problems obviously with waste disposal with nuclear energy. There is a risk associated with it. There is a risk associated with carbon capture and storage,
yes,
that maybe the storage systems don't last for hundreds and hundreds of years.
And without surety on that, we can't depend on them.
It's a risk.
Yes.
It's a risk that we may not want to take. My dream is that we go from this carbon addicted society to a zero carbon society, so that in 50 years' time,
50.
Australia has a lifestyle where we still have transportation systems, we still have electricity systems, we're still using energy, but that energy is completely free from carbon dioxide emissions. We're producing it from renewable energy sources. We have a society where the economic growth is separated from carbon emissions. It's no longer dependent upon dramatically increasing consumption. We have a different style of society. It is in fact a community-friendly society and
I love that, yes.
And it's also a...
Simpler?
Well, it's not necessarily simpler.
No.
I think it can still be a very developed society, but where it respects the environment and biodiversity, and it is sustainable. It is still growing. We are still using energy, but we're producing that energy in sustainable ways. And the important point about that dream is it's not just in 40 years' time, in 2050. We have to act now. Even with the government actions on emission reductions, Australia is projected to have growing emissions for the next 10 years, until 2020. We need to turn that around. We need to turn it around straight away so that there's a peak in Australia's emissions by 2010, and then we've got to go down at least 20% below 1990 levels in 10 years by 2020.
Right.
And unfortunately, we're heading upwards to be 20% above 1990 levels by 2020. So this will require concerted action by everyone, But there are opportunities to do this and to save money in the process by using energy efficiency opportunities, by using renewable energy opportunities. Then we have to go another 20% or 30% by 2030 and another 20 to 30% by 2040 so that we can essentially have reduced emissions by between 90 and 100% by 2050. So these are like stepping stones on the way to a zero carbon society. And we know that they're achievable. There will be some cost, but there will be dramatic benefits because the future climate will have changed as little as possible from what we've been used to and what our society has developed around. Well, there was one other thing.
Yes.
We better not leave this out. I think it's critically important that young people are motivated to see that it's not beyond hope, that first of all, see this as an opportunity and a challenge for them to motivate and change their own actions and then to lead through their actions.
This is their challenge.
It's a battle for everyone, but it is in fact critically important that they will be experiencing it and that their children will be experiencing a changed climate. So it is much more important that they lead, moving away from a consumer-driven society to a sustainable society and a zero-carbon society. And there are lots of things. I mean, there are things that they can do in terms of individual actions like using public transport or using green power. There are also things that they can do in terms of lobbying business and lobbying the federal government. And one of the nice things that they can do is that there are now many networks among young people, including on Facebook and MySpace, that allow them to work with each other and find out about actions that have worked in different communities and to exchange that information.
And to know that they work.
It is critically important that young people feel engaged, get involved, and that there is not just hope, there are opportunities for jobs, for activities that will build the future.